So I've had this coil here kind of lingering around and kind of finally figured out what it is that I want to do with it, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to attach it, and it's going to go up and over the top of all of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to score and slip all of the top part here. And the main reason I'm doing this is because especially my bowl here that's dried out for a couple, I guess it was about 2 weeks since the last time I recorded these videos. I want to make sure that I add some water to it to make sure that it's soft. The clay that I rolled out into the coil is a lot softer, all right, than the clay that's dried out a little bit over time. And for that reason, I want to make sure that the surface of where I'm going to be attaching it is similar to the wetness of the pieces that I'm attaching. If one's drier than the other, then what's the problem? That drier side has shrunk a little bit. The other side hasn't shrunk a little bit. So if that's the case, what may happen is that if it's too dry and too wet, they won't combine, because when this extra wet side tries to shrink, it'll actually pull itself away. All right, so we want to make sure to do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take my coil. I am just going to kind of dry fit it on here and make sure that I get a good solid connection over everything, pressing it down firmly but not too hard, not enough to disform my piece, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a little bit beyond, okay, like that, so you can see how they kind of overlap. And then the reason for that is so that when I cut these, when I cut the ends of this, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this. So I'm going to cut through both ends of the coil, just like that. So now when I put these two pieces together, those two ends should fit perfectly together. So now those two ends will fit perfectly together. Now I can also just kind of go through and I'm going to smooth this out with my fingers, maybe a little bit of water, okay? Because what again? I don't want to make it look like it's more than one piece of clay. I want people to be guessing how this was put together. That's part of that craftsmanship that we'll talk about when we get to grading our projects and turning our projects in and rating them and all that kind of stuff. So, got a little crack there. I can just take a little bit of water, smooth that in, okay? Make sure that that's nice and well connected. All right, and so now, okay, you can see how that's connected on the inside, nice and smooth, okay? And now we're gonna go ahead and take our popsicle stick and we're gonna smooth that on the inside, okay? So, as I was before, I'm dragging the clay down into the piece below. So the coil is getting dragged into the little balls, also the lip or the upper surface of my bowl, okay? And then I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna smooth that upwards, okay? We always wanna go both directions. Drag it down, okay? And then drag it up. Drag it down, and then go back over that same area and drag up. And what this does, again, this takes the clay, mixes it one way, mixes it the other way, and that way it's connected together. And then we can go ahead and smooth that all out so that the pieces are perfectly aligned and perfectly flat later on. But we want to make sure that we go ahead and connect those really well first and foremost so that we've got a good bond on the inside. Now, I don't know if you guys can see it in the video, okay? I'm a little bit far away from how I'm doing this just so you guys can see me and you can see the project, but you'll notice that the outside of this still has that same coil and the little balls design, which is what we want. The inside of this is going to be nice and smooth, which I'm not worried about because that's the way I want it. I want it to be nice and clean on the inside. Nobody really cares about the inside, especially if this was like a cereal bowl or a bowl that you were going to use for cooking or baking or something like that and mixing. When you put your tools, such as a spoon or a spatula or something like that, if it's smooth on the inside, it'll make it so that as you scrape by, it's not going to chip off chunks of clay or damage your tools or that kind of thing. If it's nice and smooth on the inside, it's nice and consistent and it'll make it nice and easy. Now, on the inside, as you can see, it's pretty rough, okay? Bring out the rib, maybe even a little bit of water, okay? If I need to, you'll notice that little chunks of clay gotten stuck on that, and I take a little sponge and clean off that part of it so that now I can go ahead and smooth that design on the inside, that that pattern or that roughness that we've gotten from the clay itself, or from the tools digging into it. Okay, I'm going to do that all the way around, make sure connections are nice and well secured. And then I can go ahead and use my fingertips to help kind of smooth that in perfectly so it's nice and clean. Okay, the edges up here, okay, I don't know if you can see there's a little bit of chunks of clay that are stuck on the edges there. If I want, I can use a little sponge that can help kind of smooth that out. I'm not using it wet. I've wrung out 99% of the water, okay, as much as I can really. This is just going to kind of help knock down those big areas, and then use your fingers. Your fingers are going to be your best tools that you have as far as for smoothing and that sort of thing. And you want to keep this as clean and smooth as possible as you're building it, so that way there's less work to do in the end. Okay, there's a couple little things we can do at the end, but we'll talk about that a little later. Now, on the outside, okay, I'll hold this up here, and you can see there's little chunks of clay right in here, little scratch marks and that kind of stuff. What I'm going to do, take a little wet paintbrush, I'm going to drag that over those little areas. All right, and what that's going to do is my paintbrush is going to work kind of like a little piece of sandpaper, but what's nice about it is that it gets into all those little nooks and crannies. It'll also cover up any kind of little cracks that might be in the clay there and really make that nice and smooth. Now, why is that so important? Well, A, the craftsmanship part of it is a big deal. Okay, that's a big proponent for me. I really like things that are nice and smooth and clean. It just shows control over the clay. But the other thing is that when we attach or we add the colorant, the glazes to it, okay, any imperfections will be magnified by the glaze. So the smoother it is, the more consistent the glaze will turn out, and the cleaner the glaze will be, and therefore the colors will go on much smoother, and that way you don't have to worry about it. So the cleaner you can make it, the smoother you can make it, okay, the better it's going to turn out in the end. So start with a nice clean surface, okay, and as you can see, just kind of working the last little bit of this, but the smoother and cleaner and more consistent that surface is, the better, okay, as far as what the glaze is going to look like in the end. And if I need to, what I'm doing on the table, you can't, it's kind of out of the camera view, but what I'm doing is I'm getting rid of some of those chunks of clay, getting rid of some of that moisture, some of the water, okay, so that now I've got a nice smooth surface all the way around. There we go. All right, so that's pretty good. You will always find little things that you can fix. I call it the Miller Lite philosophy, for lack of a better term. Miller Lite had a great ad campaign, and their slogan was "Know when to say when." In other words, know when to stop drinking. Obviously, that doesn't apply to any of you because you're not 21, but know when to stop. As artists, we tend to want things to be absolutely perfect or make things perfectly smooth or everything like that. And the problem is that you can continually work on things, and that can cause a problem. Because if you overwork it, then it becomes sloppy, and yeah, you run into all kinds of difficulties and that sort of thing. So my suggestion is get to a point where you're pretty happy with it and then be done with it, okay? But you'll notice that I'm going back and, oh, there's a little spot there. Oh, there's a little spot there. It's just the form of an artist. All right, so I've got my top part decorated there. Pretty cool. Now I need to attach a foot, okay? And that, now because I've done the top part, it poses a few little difficulties, but I'll show you how to fix that in just a second. But let's do that in the next video.